Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are today, and welcome to the webinar. I'm Elise Arthurs, and I'm Director of Marketing at RightScale, and we're excited about our webinar today so that we can share more about our partnership between RightScale and SoftLayer. We always start our webinars with some polls. That gives us a sense of who's attending today. So I'm going to ask Ryan to put up the first poll, and then I will ask you, the audience, to answer the questions here. So the first question is, are you using the cloud today? And when we ask that question, we mean in terms of infrastructure as a service. So SoftLayer or an Amazon cloud deployment. So if you could take a moment to answer this poll, we'd appreciate it. Okay, we're just getting some answers in here. Couple more moments. Okay, it looks like we've got the answers up. So, it looks like a good percentage of the audience today is already doing something on an infrastructure as a service cloud. Well, good. I think then that the content today will be very applicable to you, as well as to the people, the 28% who haven't started yet. Will definitely address some of the 101 items for starting a project on the cloud. So now we're going to launch the next poll. And this is regarding cloud management, which is what RightScale provides, and just getting a sense of to what degree you're using cloud management solution. Is it from your cloud provider directly, or are you already using RightScale or another third party, or you're not yet using a cloud management solution? So if you could take a couple moments to let us know what you're doing there. You can see that we're getting our responses in now, so we'll just give it a couple more seconds. Okay, and let's see here. Okay, yeah, so a big portion aren't yet using a cloud management solution, but a lot of you are using it from a cloud provider, and I assume, you know, the small number who are using it from RightScale there or another provider, you'll still get a lot of benefit from what you'll see in terms of what we can do with our cloud management solution with SoftLayer today. Okay, great. So one more poll, and then we'll move on to starting the webinar. And this last poll just has to do with what your role is within your organization, to give us a sense again of who the audience is, and be able to tailor some of our content more specifically to your needs. Okay, we'll give it just a couple more moments here. Questions are coming in or getting answered. Okay, looks like the results are up. Oh, nice mix today of various roles in the organization. So, all right, good mix, and you know, as you normally see, a heavy skew to the technical side. So, great. I think everyone will enjoy the live demo. All right. Well, with that, let's get started, and I'll introduce our panel today. We've got our team from RightScale as well as our team from the SoftLayer slide. So on the RightScale side, we've got Hunter Williams, and he is at RightScale doing business development, and he works on the SoftLayer partnership. And then we've got Nathan Day from SoftLayer, who's their chief scientist, and I understand one of their founders, so we're very happy to have Nathan on today. And then also Ryan Geyer from RightScale. He's a sales engineer, and he'll take us through the live demo. And then we have somebody who's on Q&A, so you can ask questions throughout the entire webinar using the question panel on GoToWebinar. And that is Jason Altabelli. He's from RightScale. He's one of our account managers and is very familiar with what we're doing with SoftLayer. So we just encourage you to continue to ask questions throughout the entire webinar. We also do the live Q&A at the end, but we can answer a lot of questions throughout the course of the webinar. So please take advantage of that. And with that, I will hand this off to Hunter Williams.
Thanks, Elise, for the introductions. Quick agenda for the day. We're going to go over sort of briefly the RightScale SoftLayer partnership and both of our offerings. Then we're going to run through a live demo of the integration. And we're going to finish off with 15 to 20 minutes of open forum and QA. So please do use the questions window to submit questions, and we'll try to get those answered by the end of the webinar. So at RightScale, we're super excited about the partnership with SoftLayer, really because it's an opportunity for best-in-class cloud services to meet best-in-class cloud management. The integration has been requested over time by a number of our different customers and prospects, so it really drove this to be a logical partnership for the two organizations. And as the customer ecosystem has evolved at RightScale to include everything from startups to enterprises, our customers' needs have evolved as well on a diverse and global scale. And given all of the rich benefits of SoftLayer, including their very impressive network offerings, high-performance servers, and some of their creative approaches to cloud computing in general, we've invested really heavily in creating a fully featured and tightly integrated solution with their offerings. A little history on RightScale. We are the world's #1 cloud management provider, primarily because we are the one-stop shop for managing the entire stack. From your cloud infrastructure all the way up to software load balancers and database managers. We've been managing some of the largest cloud deployments in the world for over 6 years. And through that, we've driven a user base of more than 45,000 users worldwide, and 3 million servers, more than 3 million servers have been launched through the RightScale dashboard. We also are behind a number of the largest production cloud deployments in the world. So Zynga uses us, Intercontinental Hotels, NTT Docomo, the BBC. In fact, here's a sort of a brief snapshot of some of the customers that we work with. You'll see Playfish on there, a division of EA, Mentor, a division of Johnson & Johnson. And for a variety of reasons listed here, these customers have driven towards using RightScale. The central core of it is all around operationalizing cloud computing, so these companies can leverage all of the amazing benefits that are associated with it. At the core is really automation, dealing with scalability, dealing with disaster recovery and backups, and really being able to design systems that can handle failure with a minimal impact. We strive to create an open platform where people can leverage tools that we've built and adapt them for their specific needs. Or they can get in nice and deep and build everything from scratch. RightScale is designed for enabling and empowering users like developers and system admins with tools that are going to make their jobs easier, while balancing that with providing visibility to the different stakeholders across an organization, from CFOs down to directors of IT and directors of operations. So here's how this all works. Again, at the core is the RightScale automation engine. We monitor and manage every server launched on our platform, and then can make automated decisions based on those monitoring metrics. We also have a series of supporting mechanisms to help the different types of users of our platform. For example, we have a configuration framework that allows developers and admins to rapidly deploy into different regions of the SoftLayer cloud or across multiple public, private, or hybrid clouds, all from a single pane of glass. We back that up with what we call our multi-cloud marketplace, which is a library of pre-built configurations that can be used either out of the box or leveraged as a starting point for systems development. Some examples of that would be PHP Application Servers, where we offer both the open source version as well as the Zen-built commercial offering, IBM's WebSphere or DB2, and ready to replicate and backup MySQL database tools. And over all of that, we overlay a series of governance tools to handle access control and auditing, as well as cost tracking and real-time visibility. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Nathan Day over at SoftLayer to give a brief overview of their platform.
Thanks, Hunter. So for those of you that don't know, SoftLayer is an infrastructure as a service provider. We're thrilled to be working with RightScale. At SoftLayer, we've always had a strong focus on giving our customers control of their compute and network assets inside our data centers that are hosting their own applications. And by partnering with RightScale, they can bring that best-in-class control user interface to our great control that we have over the assets in the data center. And a combination of that will give our common customers just an incredible amount of control and visibility into what's going on in the compute environment. Next slide, please. So just a couple of numbers on SoftLayer. We've won a few awards for fastest growing companies, and we've got a lot of customers located all around the globe. We've got about 100,000 physical servers currently. That number keeps going up, thankfully. We've got 13 data centers scattered around the globe. I'll put up a map a little later and show you where those are. And we're almost at 700 employees. Next slide, please. So our customers are generally looking for a provider where they can build out their apps to operate at internet scale. So these customers are, content providers, they're social gaming companies, they're other social media companies. Anyone with an internet-facing application, or in a lot of cases, a lot of our customers don't have internet-facing applications, and they just use our private network, which I'll describe later. But to get all this done, we've built a global interconnected platform, and with a high degree of reliance on network performance. We know that's critical to any kind of hosted application. We've built this out using a modular automated infrastructure, and we've got a full-featured API that we were able to integrate with RightScale to provide the degree of control that you'll see in a few minutes. Next slide, please. So all of our compute products are built out using a base of a standard x86 server. And we can take that x86 server and convert that into a cloud server, a dedicated server, or it can be even, you can load on your own virtualization hypervisor, and you can create your own cloud. So by starting with that common component and building outwards from there, our whole infrastructure is unified. So whether you're getting a cloud virtual machine, a dedicated server with a hypervisor on top of it, it's all managed through the same control plane. It's all supported with the same support organization, and it's all billed through the same billing infrastructure. And we think that lets our customers pick the right kind of tool to run their app. Each app is different. They have different needs for I/O, for storage, for RAM, and this combination of having all these options available really lets our customer get their application working on the most efficient platform for them. Next, please. So I mentioned a network earlier. So we've actually got 3 networks on every server and every cloud virtual machine we provision. We have a standard public internet-facing network like you'd expect. We've also got a management network that gives our customers not only console access to their compute environments, but also keyboard, video, mouse access to their environments. That allows for a greater degree of control and also troubleshooting. The private network is something that's kind of unique to SoftLayer. By putting this at the second layer 3 routed private network on every server, whether it's a physical dedicated server or a virtual server in our cloud, it interconnects all that same customer's compute environments across different products. So a dedicated server will have a connection to a cloud virtual machine, whether those environments are in the same rack, in a different room, in the same city, in different cities, or different continents. So every SoftLayer customer has their own layer 3 routed private network, so they don't have to worry about things like cross connects between servers. They have reliable, secure communication with low latency, as best as can be done, to interconnect their workloads. Next, please. And here's a map showing our global footprint. So we have 13 data centers, like I mentioned, cities like Singapore, Houston, Dallas, San Jose, Seattle, Washington, D.C., and Amsterdam. But what you also see on there is some network points of presence. So we've got this global interconnected mesh network that interconnects our data centers to allow that private network to span continents as well as spanning cities. And next one, please. So we believe in flexibility for our customers. Our customers are best suited to decide what kind of compute and network infrastructure and architecture they need. We're not going to be the right ones to tell you how to run your application the best. Our customers are. So we put a large variety of products and services out there and let our customers assemble them in the way that fits their technical needs, their financial needs, and their risk tolerance. I mentioned that those servers can communicate over the same networks. They can be organized and consolidated into virtual racks. And this really is to enable our customers to have a high degree of business agility. Think of rapid deployment like you would in any other cloud environment, very customizable, and the billing terms are either month-to-month or hourly, depending on what our customers desire. Next, please. And this is just a little small snapshot of our service portfolio. We have a lot more products of this, but it gives you an idea of the breadth of our services. Everything from quad processor dedicated servers to the cloud virtual machines. We have load balancers. We have managed services. We've got iSCSI SANs. We've got object storage. Just a huge variety of services that, again, allows our customers to assemble these into the solution that best fits their needs. And with that, I'm going to hand it back over to Ryan for the demo.
Thank you, Nathan. So let me get the RightScale dashboard pulled up here real quick. Bear with me. I'm going to pull this over here and make it full screen. Great. So got a little bit ahead of myself here. I'm actually showing you the deployment, but before that, I actually want to take you to the RightScale dashboard and show you that. So for that 8% of you who have used RightScale before, this is probably pretty familiar, but we want to go ahead and show this, describe it a little bit for those of you that are a little bit new to the platform. So when you first log in, this is what you're going to see. This is actually a customized view for each user. So in this case, I have this particular set of widgets that's showing me the running servers in my account, the SoftLayer cloud credentials that are listed here, and then current active alerts on some of the servers that are running, and then a list of the deployments that I'm running and the approximate run rate for what those are going to cost me. And then again, like I say, these are all widgets that are customizable, a lot like iGoogle and other technologies you might be familiar with. These are all written in liquid markup, so they can be customized. You can write your own and kind of get your own personal view of the servers and the deployments that are running in your RightScale account. Over on the left here, we've got a couple of other interesting things. We're able to bookmark individual assets in the RightScale dashboard. So I've got a bookmark to the deployment that you got a sneak peek of there earlier. And then I've also got a bookmark to an auto-scaling array of Php App Servers in this case, and some quick monitors for some load balancers that I have set up. So what I want to do is actually drill down into that deployment that you saw earlier and talk a little bit about what we're seeing here. So a deployment in the terms of RightScale is a lot like you would imagine in a standard physical data center. We've got a number of servers that are working together for a common application, accomplishing a common goal. So in this case, we've actually got two load balancers. This all comes together as a PHP 3-tier infrastructure. So we've got two load balancers for high availability. And you'll also notice that they're in two different geographic locations. So we're taking advantage of SoftLayer's ability to use that private backend network. We've got one load balancer in the Seattle data center and then another one in the Amsterdam data center. And so this deployment would be able to use global load balancing, where if you're making a request from Europe, you're going to get routed to this load balancer in Europe and then leverage the backend network to access the rest of the infrastructure. If you're in the continental U.S., then you're going to hit this Seattle load balancer, and then again use that great private network that SoftLayer provides to be able to hit the back-end Php App Servers, which are the next in tier in the application here. So we'll talk a little bit about those here. We've got 2 Php App Servers, again, for high availability, and these are distributed in another 2 data centers of SoftLayer's. One of them is in Seattle. Another one's in one of the Dallas data centers of SoftLayer. And then at the bottom here, we've got the 2 database servers. Again, for high availability and for disaster recovery purposes, we've got a master-slave configuration here. These are both MySQL database servers using our standard database manager server template. So we're really leveraging the network here and taking advantage of the ability to distribute these servers across the different data centers and really take full advantage of the SoftLayer backend network.
So Ryan or Nathan, quick question. It seems that you've got these running in a variety of different regions. What are the costs associated with that? Most cloud providers have interregional costs associated and security concerns. Nathan, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So for the most part, our pricing is static across the globe. In our Singapore data center, there's a small premium for dedicated servers, but otherwise the costs are the same, networking costs are the same. So we try to keep as consistent as possible for our customers, so they can make their choice on what's best for them geographically and not try to make compromise based on price.
If I'm not mistaken, Nathan, the cost for transfer between these different data centers, for instance, when maybe my Europe load balancer is hitting the Php App Server in Seattle, is there a cost for that data transfer?
No, there's not. So there's no cost at all for any traffic that goes over the private network. And additionally, we don't charge for any inbound traffic over the public internet either.
That's great. So this is, one of the things that we're really excited about working with SoftLayer on is in the past, at RightScale, we've built out multi-regional and multi-cloud solutions where you have the same sort of high availability and leveraging servers and systems in other geos and in other cloud providers even, but there's always the question of the charges that you're going to accrue sending data over the public internet, and then again, because it is the public internet, there's the concern of securing that data transfer. By using SoftLayer, we're able to really alleviate those concerns. We're using that private backend network. It's super fast and it's secure. So this really makes those sorts of infrastructures and those sorts of deployments a lot easier to build and a lot less technically challenging. Another thing I'd like to point out, again, that's kind of unique to SoftLayer is that we're running our master and slave MySQL databases as cloud servers in this case. If we had a particularly high-performance application that maybe required a larger, more powerful database server or maybe some specific hardware requirements, we could actually launch a dedicated MySQL box in SoftLayer, which you can do either through the SoftLayer dashboard or through the API. And then there's actually no additional configuration to have the rest of the cloud servers that you see in this deployment communicate with that. Again, it's leveraging that private backend network. So again, something else that we're really excited about working with SoftLayer on. So a little bit back to the RightScale technology, we've kind of talked about what the deployment is here. It groups together these servers in a useful deployment and configuration. I want to highlight a little bit the tags that you see near the right-hand side of the screen here. We're actually using these to give the servers contextual knowledge about that deployment that they're in. So we've talked about how the Php App Server is built from the server template. We'll touch on that a little bit more in detail. But when a Php App Server comes up, it can't operate in a vacuum, right? It has to connect to a load balancer, it has to use a database server, it has to know about the other servers in its deployment in order to be able to do its job. So that's what these tags are for. We actually use these tags so that this Php App Server knows about the load balancers that are also in this deployment, as well as knowing about the database servers that are in this deployment. And there's some automation techniques that we use there that I'll highlight here in a minute. In order to talk about that in a bit more detail, I'm actually going to click into the server template for the PHP App Server, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Another one of the key tenets for RightScale is this idea of automation and also separating out really the core base operating system from the actual configuration for the server. So for this server template, again, we're looking at the PHP App Server. This is actually the list of all of the images that can be used to launch this server. And this is what gives us the ability to launch the exact same type of server, the exact same type of workload into any of the clouds that we support. And you see right up at the top here, there's the SoftLayer image with the current version of CentOS and the latest version of our agent, which is called RightLink, which is also coincidentally version 5.7. So when you launch this server into any one of the clouds that we support, it's going to pick the appropriate image for the cloud that you're launching. Now again, that's just a base operating system. There's nothing really built into that. So in order for this to become something more than just a base PHP application server, we need to do some configuration. So we do some normal stuff you might expect. We set up some firewall rules. We enable and configure NTP. We set up a swap device, so on and so forth. Then the really kind of interesting pieces about this are what I alluded to earlier. Since this is a PHP app server, one of the things that we do is we run this script here called do update code. And that's going to go ahead and grab the latest version of the PHP code that you want to run for this particular server. And it's going to download it onto the server, restart Apache, do all the correct configuration that's necessary to start serving that PHP application from the server that you launch. And then right near the end here, we do this particular script, which is load balance do attach request. So we actually use those tags that we have on the deployment for this server to discover all of the load balancers that are in the same deployment. And we actually make a remote request to run a script on those load balancers that adds this server, this PHP app server, to the load balance pool. So by launching this server through RightScale, getting it up and running, it's going to take all of this information about its context, the application that it's supposed to run, do all those things, and be up and running and an active member of the deployment right away.
Ryan, I noticed that these look like they're grouped into logical groups. So I see root scripts, operational scripts, decommission scripts. Could you talk a little bit about what those differences are?
Absolutely. Thanks, Hunter. So again, we talked about the boot scripts. That's what you're going to do to get the server configured into the particular role it's going to be in. Operational scripts are used to do administrative tasks, anything that you might want to do during the lifespan of that server. You might not notice that we actually have a duplication of that app PHP do update code, that thing that we run when we boot the server. We can actually run that at any time. We can do that either through the RightScale dashboard or through the API. There's a number of different mechanisms we can use for that. So as an operational script, you might deploy a new version of your application server code, and you need to then deploy that to a fleet of servers that are currently running. So you would use that operational script to do that task. And you can see there are other common administrative tasks for an application server grouped in here as well. And then this last group of decommission scripts, since we're working in a sort of ephemeral and elastic environment in the cloud, we want to be able to do things not only to configure a server and get it to become an active member of a deployment, but we also need to be able to pull that server out of that environment cleanly. So the decommission scripts is the opportunity we have to hook into that final piece, and just before the server is terminated and it goes away completely, we have the opportunity to run some scripts so it can clean up. In this case, it's an application server, so the obvious thing is we're going to remove this application server from the load balance pool. So what I want to show you now, we've talked a little bit about the server template. We've talked about how it uses these scripts to be configured and become an active member of a deployment. I want to touch on kind of how that's customized and how you're able to really use the server template to build out a deployment that's specific to your application and specific to your needs. Now, each of those scripts that you saw on each one of the server templates has inputs that you can pass into those scripts. Now, I'm up at the deployment level rather than at an individual server to kind of show the power of keeping all these servers in a deployment and using that organizational tool. What we can do is we can define the characteristics of the servers that are going to launch under this deployment. So any new server we add is going to inherit all of the inputs that we've specified at the deployment level. So these are a number of different inputs for the database server and so on and so forth. What I'd really like to show you, we're going to collapse all the categories to make this a little bit easier to read. These are the different categories of inputs for the different servers. What I'd like to show you is actually some of the inputs specifically for the PHP App Server. So there's two inputs here, and this actually is where it's going to pull the application code from. So in this case, we're using a Git repository. You can also use Subversion, or you can just pull this from a zip file anywhere that you want to host that on the end of a URL. But we're pulling this from Git, and then we're also pulling the master branch. But in a production environment, you might specify, production or version 1.2, whatever the current production version is. Now, every single application server that you launch into this deployment is going to inherit these properties, and it's going to launch a server that's exactly the same as every other PHP server that is launched in the same deployment. Very powerful, and it's one of the key tenets of how RightScale is able to do the automation that it does. There are, of course, a number of different other inputs, but I just wanted to highlight the power with these two. Now, one of the other things that is built into the server template and built into the functionality of RightScale is monitoring and alerting. So we've shown you the server template for the PHP App Server. I want to go ahead and click into one of the running PHP application servers and show you some of the detail that you see there. So, of course, it's going to show us all of the detailed information about the cloud it's running on, the image it's using, and, of course, the list of tags that we talked about earlier. Well, I want to go ahead and click on this monitoring tab. And we're using CollectD for all of the monitoring, so we're able to send lots of monitoring information back from each of these instances to the RightScale dashboard. This allows us to know things about CPU use, disk use. There's a plethora of different plugins that are available for CollectD that can be enabled to show specific information about pretty much anything you'd imagine. It's also fully customizable. It's open source, so if your application has particular metrics that you want to keep an eye on, you can either customize or create your own plugin for CollectD that will send that monitoring and metric data back to our dashboard. Now, of course, not only do we just show you those graphs in the dashboard and allow you to get that health check, but we also are checking that monitoring data on our back end. And the reason for that is so that we can actually perform alerts. So if any one of these alerts, that the majority of these that you're looking at are actually built into the pre-built server templates that we've created, if any of these metrics reach a certain threshold, we can take an action. So those set of actions are to either send an email to one or many administrators, execute a script either on this server that has the condition or on any other server that's in the same deployment. So if a server is perhaps in distress or using a lot of disk space because of a log file that's overrunning, you can run a script to rotate the log files, something along those lines. You can also reboot the server. Just go ahead and reboot it and have it come back up. There's also the opportunity, since we're using server templates and using the automation of RightScale, that you can completely relaunch that instance, where it's actually going to terminate the current running instance and bring up a whole new one from that exact same blueprint or DNA that's specified by the server template and those inputs that are set at the deployment level.
Ryan, this looks like you've got a number of preset ones in here. How customizable is this? Can you look at custom metrics? Can you make custom decisions on those?
Sure, absolutely. So we talked about it a little bit earlier. We're using that open source tool, CollectD, to send all that monitoring data back. Again, anything that you really want to send back from your application, you can. There's a number of pre-built plugins for CollectD, and since it is open source, you can create your own plugins. And anything that you're sending back, you can create your own alert for. In fact, we can click and create a new alert here. This is the list of really all of the pre-built and known monitoring metrics that we send back, and see that there's quite a lot of them. Well, we can also do a custom entry where you may have a particular metric that you're sending back to the dashboard. Once you would set that, you would pick what its value is, so greater or less than, and in this case it had a selection for one of our pre-built ones. We'll do something like commands update, which is a numeric value, and then we can do greater than, less than, equal to, not equal to, and then that particular numeric value. And if it's in that state for a certain length of time, then is when we go ahead and actually escalate it to one of those actions, one of those alerts.
I noticed down here it says vote to grow server array. What is this voting mechanism that we have in here?
I'm glad you asked. That was actually the other two unmentioned actions that you can take. So we mentioned you can run a script, or you can reboot, you can relaunch, and you can send emails. But you can also use these alerts to affect auto-scaling in RightScale. So you can actually see that the top two alerts here are custom. They're created for this particular server. So for the sake of a demo environment, we're just looking at CPU idle as the indicator that we need to add or remove more servers to this deployment to handle load. So you can see if the CPU idle value is greater than 80% for 2 minutes, well, we know that there's not a lot of load on this particular server, and we can actually vote to shrink an array that we've called app servers. And then the converse of that is also true for the CPU idle value. If it's less than 30% for 2 minutes, we know there's a lot of CPU use, this thing's under a lot of load, and it needs help. So it's going to vote to grow an array of servers, again, that app servers. So the way that works, I'm going to take you back up to the deployment level, and we'll take a look at that real quick. So we have each of the PHP app servers in this particular deployment with that same alert and that same voting mechanism, where if it's in a particular condition, it's going to vote to either add or remove servers from that array. So we're looking at the deployment now. Up at the top, we have all the static servers that we're running pretty much steady state for this deployment, the load balancers, PHP app servers, and database servers. Then down at the bottom, we have that PHP server app array that we were talking about. And if I click into that, we'll show some of the configuration options that you have here. It's alert-based, meaning that we're going to use those alerts in that voting mechanism that we talked about. It's going to launch servers into the SoftLayer cloud, and we're going to use the PHP App Server template, the exact same one that's running those two steady-state servers up in the deployment that we showed you. And then some of the real knobs that you can turn here as far as how servers are provisioned is under the server allocation policy. So the default minimum count, by default there are no servers running here. We know that those two servers that are up in the deployment is usually plenty for our steady-state level of traffic. We don't need any additional ones running in our array on a regular basis. And then we can also set a maximum. So if we have a particular budgetary concern, or we just know that there's a certain point at which our application performance can't scale further, we can set a maximum for that. And you can see also that we have the ability to launch into any one of the SoftLayer zones, which is what we've actually got set up here. It's just going to launch that server into the first available data center of SoftLayer. You can also specify, of course, this particular data center. Now, again, we kind of talked about this in that it's actually a voting mechanism, that each one of those servers are voting to either add or remove servers. This is really important because we don't want a particular server that ends up with a corner case, or maybe a problem with your application, or maybe it's under attack, where that particular metric that you're monitoring spikes, and that one is showing a lot of load, and that one server starts unilaterally adding a bunch of servers to this array. You really don't want that. You want sort of the aggregate of multiple servers that are handling the same load to all have roughly the same status, roughly the same metric showing, indicating that you need to add or remove servers. So we use this voting mechanism where we're monitoring all of the servers that are handling the same type of load, and we can set a decision threshold. In this case, more than half of the servers have to agree to either add or remove servers. So we can see a little bit about that. In fact, we've actually got a mix here where we've got those two PHP App Servers running. One of them is voting to grow, one of them is voting to shrink, maybe because I set the alerts wrong. But at any rate, at this point, we don't have a consensus, so it's neither adding nor removing servers. If both of them were under a great deal of load, we'd show 100% voting to grow, and we'd have new servers getting added. And then conversely, if they were all of them under very little load, they'd be voting to shrink, and we'd be removing servers from this array. So really at a high level, that's how RightScale uses deployments to allow you to manage systems rather than individual servers. That's really this deployment concept. We really build all of that automation into the server template that allows you to launch the exact same workloads on any of the clouds that we support. And again, we're really excited about working with SoftLayer and giving you that same power on their excellent back end and excellent servers. And then, the automation that we use for monitoring and alerting to show arrays.
I noticed one of these templates is called the Database Manager for MySQL. Could you talk a little bit about what the Database Manager for MySQL does?
Absolutely. So the Database Manager is one of the pre-built assets that we have from RightScale. And this was really one of the early tools that we built when we first started in the public cloud arena. And built this because almost everyone uses MySQL in one form or another for some piece of infrastructure. And the Database Manager really takes all of those years of expertise in trying and sometimes failing and getting these sorts of tools working on public clouds, and bakes it into just a reproducible server template that you can launch on any one of these clouds. So functionally what this does is sets up a MySQL 5.1 server, and it allows you with tools that you see in the operational scripts to actually set up a master and slave pair. So this is actually one of the failover scripts, do promote master. If you have a master and slave pair of MySQL servers, and for whatever reason there's a problem with the master, you can run this operational script on the slave, and it will promote it to the master by changing a DNS record and changing the appropriate MySQL settings, and you end up with a very quick failover in case of a disaster. The other things that this server template does, you can actually set it up to, it's in here somewhere, you can set it up to do two different types of backups. A primary backup, and this is scheduled on a regular basis where we're doing incremental and full backups on a schedule that you specify. You can also do what we call a secondary backup, so you can actually back up to do two different locations, meaning you might be backing up to an object store on SoftLayer when you're running this database server on a SoftLayer cloud, but you might also back it up to another cloud if, God forbid, there's a huge disaster with the servers that you're running in one cloud provider. Then you have that off-site backup, as it were, to be able to launch your servers and be able to still get at your data. So again, this database manager is used to really tie together all of the operational excellence of scheduled and continuous backups, the ability to do high availability and disaster recovery. All of that knowledge, all of that best practice is baked into the server template.
Great.
So with that, I think that we can get into the Q&A section.
So Ryan, I actually have a good question for you to start off with here. Is there a tool that lets companies manage and migrate applications seamlessly between their private data centers and a large number of public infrastructure as a service providers? And is this supported across multiple hypervisors?
The short answer is yes. Let me read over that a little bit, make sure I have the full weight of the question there. So really, I mean, the answer is, RightScale really does that in a number of ways by giving you the server template concept that allows you to launch servers across any of the clouds that we support. You ask about specifically some of the public cloud providers, as well as in some cases private clouds, I think is what you're kind of asking about when you're asking about the hypervisors there. RightScale supports at this point a handful of public clouds. I'm not going to try to list them because I'm sure I'll leave someone out. I don't want to do that. But then for the private cloud side, any cloud that's running one of the cloud enabling technologies that we support, either CloudStack, OpenStack, or Eucalyptus, we can go ahead and provide the same automation and configuration tools that RightScale provides on top of those private clouds. As far as the hypervisors that are supported, the short answer is that any one of the hypervisors that are supported by that cloud enabling technology is supported by RightScale. So really we have a lot of flexibility to launch on pretty much any sort of resource pool that is API accessible and operates as a cloud.
Thanks, Ryan. So Nathan, I noticed a lot of these questions coming in are related to SoftLayer. Do you want to answer a few of these?
Sure, I'll take some. So here's a good question, I thought. What's the main advantage of SoftLayer versus EC2? And the secondary question was cost. And I tend to think of the advantage being more technical than not technical. The technical answer is at SoftLayer, you can get and design dedicated servers in addition to a range of cloud virtual machines. So at Amazon, everyone's familiar with, they have 9, 10, or 11 different options when it comes to different sizes of cloud virtual machines you can get. The key is that even those really big Amazon instances are actually running a hypervisor. So you might be the only person on the server, but you're still running through a hypervisor. So you're still paying a hypervisor tax for everything you do. So if you come to, and you're also fixed within their RAM and disk constraints. If you come to SoftLayer, you can get a cloud virtual machine from us with all the advantages of that. Or if you need to specifically design the hardware your application needs to run on, you can pick processors, RAM configuration, disk configuration, RAID configuration. You just have a lot more technical options at SoftLayer when it comes to designing your compute environment. Cost can come into it as well. So if you're on a cloud virtual machine from any provider and you're paying by the hour, you're actually paying a premium to have something by the hour, which makes sense for workloads that are transient and are only going to last for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. But if you have a steady state workload that you're paying an hourly price for, I can almost guarantee you're overpaying. So at SoftLayer, you can get our cloud virtual machines and hourly and monthly billing models, and our dedicated servers you can also get, dedicated physical servers you can also get in terms of a monthly model. And so if you have any kind of steady state load, and pretty much everybody does, a monthly option will save you money over an hourly option from any provider. And just use the hourly options for any kind of transient traffic or spikes. Let's see, let me grab another question while I'm at it. I seem to have a majority of them here. What's the SoftLayer API based on? Question is VCD, OpenStack, or your own? Actually, it's our own. We built the SoftLayer management system well before OpenStack or VMware Cloud or any others existed, so it's built out with our own. One thing you might find, though, is when you get in down some specific products SoftLayer offers, like our object storage product is built on top of OpenStack Swift, so that has a standard OpenStack Swift API on that one. And let me grab one more before I hand it back to RightScale. Let's see. One question is, I know that SoftLayer uses NIMSoft internally. Will the RightScale monitoring capabilities replace NIMSoft? I would say it's in addition to our NIMSoft monitoring capabilities. The cool thing about using the RightScale monitoring capabilities is you can have that interact with the features that Ryan just showed you in order to do auto-scaling and have actions taken by the management platform based on what's going on the individual operating system. So that's the true power there. So I would say you definitely want to use the SoftLayer monitoring capabilities, and if you want to either use the existing default SoftLayer monitoring using NIMSoft or go to the advanced models from SoftLayer, you can too. But there sure is a lot of power available when you combine the RightScale monitoring with the RightScale control. And let me hand it back to Hunter now.
So Ryan, we have another question for you. Does RightScale provide caching instances, meaning high RAM, for running Memcached or Redis servers?
Great, that's an excellent question. So we do in our multi-cloud marketplace, which I unfortunately neglected to show during the demo, but our multi-cloud marketplace is sort of the Apple iStore, if you will, for applications in those server templates that I showed you. We've got a number of those that are pre-built, and we also have ones from the community as well as software vendors. One of those software vendors is Couchbase, and they do have a server template that's available in the marketplace. You asked a little bit too about, in particular, high RAM instances. So RightScale really depends upon the underlying cloud provider to provide an instance type that has a certain amount of CPU and a certain amount of RAM. As Nathan was saying actually on the first question that he answered, SoftLayer is really going to give you the tools to customize that to the extent that you need. So you might end up with a server that has very little CPU and a lot of memory, and you'd be able to leverage that cloud provider for that. Of course, there's other combinations too. If you even wanted to run that in-house on your own private cloud, and you had very specific requirements for CPU and I/O and disk connectivity and those sorts of things, you'd create your own customized private cloud that really optimized for that workload, and then automate it with RightScale and use those server templates that are available in the marketplace.
And another one for you, do all the auto-scaling and automation features that RightScale users have come to see with AWS also work on SoftLayer?
Absolutely. So that's really a great deal of the power that we provide with RightScale is every solution that we build, we make it cloud agnostic. So if we can't do the same functionality across every cloud that we support, then we really don't try to build that functionality. So all of the auto-scaling that you're used to, the alerting, those sorts of things that I even touched on in the demo are all available on SoftLayer, and just the same as they are on Amazon and Rackspace and the different public and private cloud providers.
Thanks, Ryan. So we have one that I think you and I could both answer here. How does the RightScale platform differ from the Cloud Stack offering? There's a very fundamental difference in that Cloud Stack is a tool meant to enable clouds. RightScale does not enable clouds. RightScale manages clouds. So Cloud Stack effectively overlays an API and orchestration layer that interfaces with the hypervisor, and RightScale in turn can talk to the Cloud Stack API. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I mean the way I like to think about that is that you kind of go from your base data center, you've got physical machines. The next layer up from that is adding a hypervisor so you can virtualize that and run multiple virtual machines on a physical machine. The next step up from that is adding a cloud enabling layer like Cloud Stack, OpenStack, or Eucalyptus, which really takes that green field, multiple VMs on a particular physical machine, and allows you to specify instance types. You get a certain amount of CPU and a certain amount of memory, and allows you to lay down that base operating system that we talked about in the RightScale server template. It also gives you some great tools for configuring and managing your database, and sort of automates that piece of it. It's really automating the physical part of your infrastructure. RightScale then sits on top of that and allows you to really automate the configuration of those servers and the virtual machines that are running on top of those physical servers that are managed by Cloud Stack. It allows you to really automate those virtual machines, group them in deployments so that you have all of the tools to have contextual knowledge about the servers that are running there, gives you the automation to configure servers in particular roles, and allows you to monitor and auto-scale those on your own infrastructure.
Thanks, Ryan. Nathan, it looks like there's still a few more coming in for you. Do you want to take a couple?
Sure. So I thought this was a good one I saw. Someone's curious to know how I can get the lowest possible network latency between any two servers or VMs, for example, to set up synchronous database mirroring. The best way to do that is, depending on what your tolerance for latency is to use geography to set that. For example, you may need to be in different data centers in the same city. You might be able to handle, maybe it's 40 milliseconds, or actually it's like 60 milliseconds from, say, Dallas to Washington, D.C. One of the things we did when we built out that actually global private network is we have dedicated lines and dedicated fiber for those connections. And the beauty of that is that we can give a very consistent latency. So, you can't do much about the speed of light. We're kind of, that's kind of the law. But when it comes to having the variation, if you were transiting the internet at large, you would have a pretty big jitter between your packet latency. But on the SoftLayer private network, you're going to have a very consistent latency. So as long as you design your application to work with a specific latency, you can take advantage of having servers in different geographies. And like I said, the jitter in that latency is what would kill you more than a large latency, I would think. So let me grab another one here. Let's see. Does RightScale integrate with SoftLayer's physical servers, meaning not virtual machines? Not yet, but hopefully soon. Both, I'm going to speak for RightScale here, but both of us are interested in having this work. I think that's a lot of power. It's the same API that SoftLayer uses for our cloud virtual machines as we use for our dedicated servers. So we're actually very close, and I'd say we're in early stages of testing for that. And let's see, here's another one I'll do before I hand it back. Is the monitoring data considered outbound data from the perspective of SoftLayer data charges? Yes, it is, but that's an excellent question that I probably should talk to my friends at RightScale about. There might be something we can do there to have that reported over the private network, but that's a great question. I'm going to take that down as a product suggestion. And now, let me go ahead and send it back.
Thanks, Nathan. So we had another one just come in. How does RightScale ensure that servers stay in compliance?
All right, so I can take that one, Hunter. So, that's another opportunity for some of our ISV partners to step in there. One in particular is CloudPassage. They're a security and compliance software vendor, and they've got what they call the Halo daemon. It's an agent that gets installed on the particular virtual machines that you're running. It tells you all sorts of things about the current patch version of packages, the current state of IP tables, firewalls, firewall rules, things of that nature, and it allows you to keep those things in sync. You can also kind of roll your own in a way with RightScale. The key there would be to have an operational script associated with each of your server templates that you could run periodically that would sort of audit the state of that server and maybe compare it against a compliant profile, and you could use that to send out email alerts or even take action to bring that server back into compliance. It's not a core functionality of RightScale, but we give you the automation tools to be able to provide that functionality for yourself or for our ISV partners to extend that as well.
Great. Well, Ryan, it looks like there's time for about one more question here, and a really good one just came in. Does the RightScale API allow for me to deploy servers and execute scripts within RightScale from my own front end?
That's an excellent question. So the easy and short answer is yes, it absolutely does. To extend that a little bit more, our API is designed to really offer all the functionality that's available in the dashboard. You can launch servers, specify the particular cloud and data center that they're going to be in, the size of the server, all those sorts of things. We provide the ability to look at audit entries that we do for every single script and action that we take on a particular server. That's visible in our dashboard and exposed through the API. And of course, you can execute any of the scripts that are associated with a server template for that particular server also through the API. So we provide a very robust and fully functional API that allows you to perform all the tasks that you see in the dashboard.
Well, it seems we've come to the top of the hour. Thank you, everyone, for attending. If you'd like more information, you can find that at the links provided here or by calling either the RightScale or SoftLayer hotlines. Please come and visit us. SoftLayer will be at the RightScale conference as well in New York City on June 13th. We hope to see you all again soon. Thank you very much.